There's a thought happening right now that you didn't ask for. Maybe it arrived while you were doing something else, something completely unrelated, and the moment you noticed it, something else happened immediately after. A quiet attempt to redirect, to replace it with something better, something more useful, something that doesn't leave that particular feeling behind. That attempt is so fast, you almost don't catch it, but it's there. It's always there, a kind of inner management that runs just below the surface of whatever you think you're doing. And here's what's strange about it. The management never quite works. The thought you were redirecting comes back, or another one takes its place, and the manager tries again, with slightly more effort this time, slightly more urgency. What I keep running into is this. The trying is louder than whatever it's trying to fix, so the question surfaces on its own, without invitation. Who exactly is managing whom? There's an assumption so woven into ordinary experience that it almost never gets examined. The assumption that there is someone here, behind the thoughts, making decisions about them, choosing which ones to follow, which ones to dismiss, which ones to believe. We call this free will, and we protect it fiercely. Even people who intellectually question whether free will exists will still feel in the very next moment that they are the ones deciding to question it. This feeling is very convincing. It has the texture of something obvious, something that doesn't need to be looked at because it's the one doing the looking. When the mind produces a reaction you didn't want, you feel responsible for it. When a worry returns for the 5th time after you've deliberately set it aside, there's a particular frustration. Instructions aren't being followed, which implies the manager and the mind are not the same thing, which raises a question that's easy to skip over. If you can't reliably direct your own thoughts, what exactly is the free will being exercised? Most of us don't sit with that question long enough to feel its weight. There's usually another thought arriving, another redirection happening, and the inquiry gets folded into the very movement it was trying to examine. In March of 1946, in a small gathering in South India, a man named Mr. Joshi posed a question to Ramana Maharshi that most people spend their entire lives asking in private. He said, "I can't always keep up this inquiry while I'm working. When I work, I forget." Ramana's response was not what he expected. Do you cease to exist when you work? That's all. No instruction, no consolation. Just the question, pointing back at something apparently so obvious it had been completely overlooked. You always exist. The existence itself doesn't require management. It doesn't need to be maintained or protected or redirected. Whatever the mind is doing, planning, worrying, forgetting, remembering, there is something in which all of that is happening, and that something isn't a thought or a decision or the product of good choices made yesterday. It was there before the thought that just arrived. It will be there after the attempt to redirect it. Another devotee pressed further that afternoon. But without the sense of doership, how can work be done? Ramana's answer, work can be done better even, when the attachment to being the doer is released. Actions happen. They have always happened. What is added on top of them is the narrator claiming ownership, the voice that says, "I did this, I controlled that, I chose." Removing that narrator is what feels threatening. The assumption underneath runs something like this: I am the one managing my inner life. I am the one responsible for the quality of my attention, and if I'm not at peace, it's because I haven't chosen well enough yet. That assumption generates an enormous amount of activity, monitoring, correcting, assessing, trying again, a whole inner career of self-improvement that is always, somehow, unfinished. Ramana doesn't argue with this. He asks something simpler. Who is the one doing all of this? The narrator, it turns out, never actually shows up before the action. It appears afterward. You reach for a glass of water, and then notice that you reached. You think a thought, and then, a half-second later, something observes that you thought it. The observer is always slightly late, always arriving after whatever it claims to be choosing. So where, exactly, is the chooser? That's a real question, not a rhetorical one. Try right now to locate the one choosing to follow these words, not the attention itself, the one behind it, supposedly in charge of where it goes and what it trusts, the one who will decide, in a moment, what to make of all this. Look for that one. What I find, when I actually try this, is that the looking itself becomes the thing I'm looking for. There's no one standing behind it, waiting to be found. Just the search, moving through something that doesn't search. There's something that happens in that looking, a mild vertigo, when the search doesn't find what it expected. The search doesn't land on nothing, but whatever it finds isn't the solid, bounded thing that seemed so obvious a moment ago. What's there is more like a process, movement without a mover, awareness without an owner. Ramana was asked once whether every detail of a person's life is predetermined, even the trivial ones, like moving from one spot to another, drinking a glass of water. He said yes, everything. Then he said this: man's freedom lies in not identifying with the body or its activities. The freedom is in recognizing that the one who wants to control, who monitors, corrects, redirects, tries harder, is not what you are. It's a pattern, very old and very convincing, but still a pattern. Destiny, he said, cannot be prevented. Whatever is meant to happen will happen regardless of resistance, and whatever is not meant to happen will not happen regardless of effort. That might sound like a reason to give up. It isn't pointing there. It's pointing at something more precise, the energy that goes into being the manager, into claiming authorship over what is and isn't happening. That energy is what's being questioned, not your actions. The one who thinks they're the author of them. What remains when that authorship is released is something that was always there beneath the management. Existence that doesn't need to justify itself. Awareness that isn't trying to become aware. The questioner and the questioned are not two things. Ramana returned to this again and again, in different rooms, with different people, always arriving at the same unresolvable place. The inquiry into who am I doesn't produce an answer. It produces a dissolution of the one who was asking, which is why it can't be filed away as information. It either happens as recognition, or it becomes another idea the mind carries around. And the mind carrying it around is itself part of what's being investigated. The thought that arrived at the beginning of this, wherever it went and whatever replaced it, moved through something that didn't move. The management happened in something that didn't need managing. The whole career of inner self-improvement took place in something that was never damaged to begin with. What I haven't fully figured out is whether that can be understood or only recognized. Understanding puts it somewhere, files it away, makes it part of a view you now hold. Recognition is different. It leaves a small gap where the certainty used to be, a slight loosening of the assumption that there's someone here who needs to be in charge of all of this. Maybe that loosening is what Ramana was pointing at all along. Not a destination or a state to achieve, just the noticing of what's already the case before the manager arrives to interpret it. Is the one who just noticed that the same one who was managing? That question doesn't resolve. It just stays. If this is the kind of inquiry you want to keep sitting with, there are more videos here. Same questions, different teachers, same unresolvable place.